You're listening to Jesus Unfiltered with Eddie D and Nicole. On today's episode, we talk about how we landed on the name Jesus Unfiltered and what we hope to accomplish through the publishing of this podcast and spreading the gospel in a unique and creative way. Now, Jesus Unfiltered with Eddie D and Nicole. What's up, everybody? I'm Eddie D.
I'm Nicole.
And welcome to the Jesus Unfiltered podcast.
Hey.
We finally settled on our name. Probably settled on it from week one, but just kept trying to see what else is going to be.
Sure.
Yeah, but this is Jesus Unfiltered podcast, and we're just going to talk a little bit about what we're doing while we're here. We may get into a topic or two. We just was talking about something earlier. I might want to come back into that. That was really good. I was enjoying that conversation while you playing.
Of course you were.
It was a really. I think that's a worthy conversation to have. To be honest with you, it's all the whole premise of the show. Why are you playing? Let me turn this off because it's all extra loud and stuff.
Feels good.
Don't it though? But so for a while. Nicole and I have had several types of conversations about God, about relationship with Him, and the things of this world, and everything else in between. And for a long time, I can say that I remember us saying that we wish that we could have these conversations with other people. That a lot of things that we talk about are things that most Christians are not ready to talk about, not ready to deal with, especially in church settings. And so we would have these crazy thoughts and these crazy ideas and ground them in scripture. Like we would ground them in the gospel. That we weren't trying to be outlandish or trying to be off the wall. Everything we were saying was lining up with the gospel of Jesus Christ as far as God, had revealed to us. But we didn't feel we could have these kinds of conversations with anybody else but us. And so about 2 months ago, maybe, I felt the need for us to talk about the Lord and to share our faith with others. But I didn't want to go back to doing a church. Like I think that was always the issue for me. Is always we need to do a church, we need to do a ministry, we need to do this, we need to build this and get people and all this kind of stuff. And God showed me that we done did a whole year and a half of podcasting. I've done podcasts. We've done all these video things. And so why can't we just have a conversation and talk about the things that God has shown us and the things that He's revealed to us and share those things with people? Because at the end of the day, that's what sharing the gospel is all about. It's about having conversations and being able to share with people the real Jesus, not the denominational, the watered down, the fire and brimstone or put in a box type Jesus. But let's just talk about Him real, raw, and uncut. And so that is essentially what the podcast is for me.
I mean, that's basically it. In a nutshell, I know that growing up, nothing wrong with how I grew up or anything like that, but it's just when you're a kid and you're growing up, you sometimes feel like who am I to question such and such, or who am I to question the pastor or question my parents about something that I've heard or something that I'm not sure of. And so a lot of people when they're growing up they're basically kind of silenced, a lot of times not by force, but sometimes of fear or of not wanting to hurt someone's feelings or something like that. And so I think that a lot of people, a lot of kids, they may have all of these questions, but are sometimes fearful to speak up, and that's why Eddie and I, like, we raised our kids so different. I feel like we raised them differently. Like we raised them to speak up, to ask questions, to not hold and bottle stuff in. Because my thing is, if you hold it and you bottle it in, you'll never get the right answer. You'll never get an answer. Or you'll go to people who know nothing about it themselves, but then try to give you an answer and lead you the wrong way. And so, like, that's what we teach our children, speak up. Don't, think of something and then question it and then be afraid to share it or ask, because we're only going to give you the truth. We're only going to be real and honest and not lead you wrong. So, I know that I'm excited about this podcast because, like, I don't remember all the questions I had as a kid, but some of those questions, like, they have, like, kind of stirred back up. And so I know that I've asked you questions, before, and sometimes to this day, even adults, it's still kind of scary to ask those questions. You got to think to yourself, well, darn, can I ask this person this question? Should I ask this person this question? Well, I know this person's character and I know how they feel about certain things, so maybe I can't ask this person this question. But it's always good, and it feels very freeing to have someone in your life where you're like, okay, I can ask this person this question, not take it personal, not take offense to it, but know that it's just a question of curiosity that I have within myself, and I'm just looking for an answer. So it's always good to have those people in your life, and if you don't have those people in your life, then come watch Jesus Unfiltered. Ask those questions, and I promise you, we try to answer them as best as we can. Yeah. But yeah, that's what the podcast is for me, and why I'm excited about it, and why I feel that questions are, they're important, and so I feel like they're needed in life, because if you don't ask, you won't know, and then you'll just be blindly led by false TikTok. Truth. You know what I'm saying? TikTok and Facebook and the social media, and that itself is very disturbing, because then you have kids who are questioning these things, and then social media is leading them in the wrong direction. So, like I said, it's always good to have those people in your life who you can ask these questions and, not be judged in a bad way because you have those questions in mind.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why it's been very difficult even for me to find a good set of what people would consider Christian friends, because a lot of the questions that I have, or a lot of the things that fascinate me about the faith, are things that people would consider taboo. Thinking about how we were talking about earlier about, faith and sexuality and what all that entails. Looking at the, how, faith, in thinking about what 10,000 years from now is gonna really be like, and trying to figure out how to raise our children, in the world that we live in, and allow them the freedom to choose how they want to serve Christ, rather than trying to just force feed Christ to them. Allowing them to make up their own minds, and not just put them in ministry just because we were in ministry, not just wanting to put them in this, that, and the third. Yeah. And things like that. I think that this podcast, if nothing else, just gives us an opportunity to be able to share the nuances of faith. Going so far as to go back to the beginning, going back to the fundamentals. Yeah. Trying to really understand and unpack what the faith is really about. Because I was thinking about this in church this morning, that when the pastor was talking about, there are 350 different things that the Old Testament says that Christ is going to be, and Jesus, for him to even fulfill 10 of those things is pretty remarkable. And in court, how that would stand up, if you got 10 things that a person said he was going to do and he did them, that would be pretty bulletproof for your case. You can get 10. Jesus got all 350. He hit all 350 of them. And even with all of the preponderance of evidence, people still don't believe. They still don't believe. And part of the reason, though it's not all the reason, but part of the reason why people still don't believe in him is because of the package through which people give people give Jesus. Sometimes the packaging is such to where people can't receive him. And so a lot of times I've come to the understanding that a lot of people don't want to hear about Jesus, whether regardless of whether they're going to accept him or reject him. That's not on us. That's not it. The packaging is not going to determine whether somebody believes or not. At the end of the day, God's got to get in there. So I don't want to in any way say that the package is the problem. But what I'm saying is, a lot of times when I talk to people about Jesus, when I talk to people about what they know about Jesus, all they know is the packaging. They don't know him. They know the packaging. So they know that that Jesus was used as the slave master's manual to get the slaves to act right from 1619 all the way to slavery got abolished. That's all they know about the packaging. How people used exactly. They don't know Jesus. They don't know that Jesus would have seen what happened in 1619 and been like, no, this is not. You are not representing me right. I'm sorry. Let's back up. Tear all that down, because this is not who I am. It's not what I'm about. And then when you go through a lot of denominations and you look at a lot of the doctrines that they've built up and the reasons that they exist and this, that, and the third, Jesus would come down right now and say, no, that ain't it. No, this isn't it. No, this is not what I meant. No, y'all got it wrong. And so on repeat, I hear a lot of people regurgitating and spitting out for the reason that they don't believe in Jesus is the same reason that Jesus would have tore that down. Like, why you don't believe in Jesus is the reason you should believe in him. Because the very thing that you hate is the very thing he came to destroy. Now, it's not going to be destroyed completely until Jesus comes back. But the very things that people are upset about Christ for are the very things that he himself would have denounced and destroyed himself. So not sometimes, the reason why, this podcast matters so much to me is because my hope, prayer, and expectation is that we're able to present an unfiltered Jesus. Not one that's been prettied up and packaged in Baptist doctrine, or one that's been, that's the trash. Come on now, like, I don't want to whitewash it. I don't want him to be pristine and pretty. I don't want to just preach grace. No, we're gonna talk about the wrath too. But I want it to be a fully fleshed out Jesus. Where like we said last week, all they want to do is preach God is love, but God, in order for God to be love, he's got to be wrath too. Because just like we love our kids, if somebody would do something to our kids, they're going to see the love we have for our kids by the wrath we show. And so
it's you who said that, right?
No, yeah, I stole it from somebody. I ain't gonna lie. But Matt Chandler said it, but I stole it from him. So in that same way, the Jesus we present, that's what I want. That's what I want for the podcast. Is that we're presenting an unfiltered Jesus, so that people can then, for who hears it and don't have a walk with him, or for those who do but have been skeptical because of the things they see, for us to be able to say, this is the real Jesus. Uncut, unfiltered, raw, unblemished, and now make up your mind. Now decide whether or not you want to follow him or not. Like, strip away all the Baptist doctrine, strip away all the, evangelical doctrine, strip away all of the history and the atrocities that people use when they weaponize Christianity. Hopefully I just okay. No.
It's okay.
I know. But when mess me all the way up. But when they weaponize Christ for their own gain, strip all of that away, take all of that off the table, and now we just have Jesus. Now, will you accept him or reject him? I was watching a TikTok video, and Pastor Mike, I think his name is Mike Todd, was talking about how, in order for us to submit to the kingdom, we have to sometimes submit to things that we don't like. And the things that bother us about Christianity are sometimes the reasons why we won't believe. And we'll go to other Christians and be like, well, if your God is so great, why this, why this, why that? And what is your position, or what do you believe yourself? And it's like, dude, it's not about my opinion. It's about what God's decided. I love how Mike Todd put it. Like, it's not about my opinion. I'm not preaching my opinion.
Yeah.
It's not about what I think. It's about what God has decided. And because he decided this, if I'm going to submit to the kingdom, I have to submit to what he decided about things. And that's the word, and the problem that we live in our world today is that everything is filtered through the culture.
Yeah.
This is what the culture wants. So now the church has a really big problem of being filtered through the culture.
Yeah.
And so everything about Christ now has to be prettied up, has to be politically correct, has to not offend anybody, not hurt anybody, in order to keep the funds and keep the people and not be shamed or canceled on, on the social medias or anything like that. And what he was saying is, we as Christians, we cannot allow the culture to dictate how we feel. Well, I'm sorry, not how we feel, but to dictate what we do.
Because of how we are.
Because, right. And like a lot of times we present Christ that way because we are afraid of what presenting the truth about him is going to do to us.
Yeah.
And so again, I love how he put it, where if we're gonna be in the kingdom, we have to be under submission to the kingdom and everything that the kingdom requires of us. Mm-hmm. And so for me, again, the reason why the podcast is important to me is because I hope, and my prayer and expectation is that we're presenting the true Jesus, unfiltered, so that people can then see him for themselves, without all the filters, without all the political affiliations, without all of the culture, prettied up, dolled up stuff, and just really see the true, gritty, grimy, dirty Jesus for who he is and what he did to save us from our sins and our shortcomings, and then make up your mind.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
In a nutshell. Yeah. I don't have anything else.
I really want to get back to that conversation we were having, though, man, because that conversation was dope. That conversation was so dope. I'm going to talk about it, dog. So, we were talking earlier about this, I don't know, how did we even get on the subject?
I don't know.
Somehow we had got on the subject of churches, like, teaching different types of things. I can't remember what it was. God, I wish I remember where we were coming from with that. But anyway, there was this one church in particular that was teaching, sexual activity among couples. Well, now I can't even say it was among couples, because they were just teaching it, period.
Yeah.
And one had gone so far as to have like live demonstrations on stage of performing sexual acts to try to teach their parishioners and whoever came to the workshop how to perform these sexual acts. And so the question that we were asking was, where is the line drawn, when it comes to Christians trying to teach other Christians about things, let alone sexuality. And so that's where it began.
Because reality, sex is not wrong, y'all.
Right.
It's wrong and it's not wrong. Just like
everything else. Just like everything else. Any good thing can turn into a god, into a bad thing.
Exactly.
If you allow it to become more important than God himself.
Yeah. And so, I know there are a lot of times when, some people just want to, learn, how can I do this? How can I please my partner? How can this be done? What is this? And, as adults, I think that's one of the questions, you're probably afraid to ask, because it's like, oh man, I'm an adult. I should know things like this. But how are you going to know things, once again, if you don't ask, if you're not taught? You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that you have to be taught like
live demonstrations.
Yeah, I'm saying oh my gosh, I can learn what I've been doing. I can learn how to cook something, not by somebody physically and actually showing me, but I can go to Pinterest and learn how to cook something just by reading the directions or whatever. And so I think that was just one of my questions, like, well, not my question, but it was just a curiosity, you know, sorry, it was just a curiosity of like,
why you say it like
that? Because I was talking about being curious earlier.
Okay.
Just a curiosity, like, I think that one, it should, I do feel that it should be a line drawn. Because then,
of course.
like, you know,
because I mean, going back to what we said before with intent and stuff, like you know, if you wanna do a workshop that talks about intimacy among Christian couples, there's nothing wrong with that. But they had taken it too far to where they were doing live demonstrations on stage.
And like you said, I like your suggestion. You know, there should be like a you should be like certified and you know all that kind of stuff. They weren't. You know, they were just pastors. And,
right.
You know.
And I'm glad you said that. But we're gonna get back on it. But what we need to really be mindful of is that just because you got pastor behind your name does not make you.
It does not make you certified to teach sex. It does not make you certified to counsel. It doesn't make you certified to be a
financial
doctor, or a financial
health
person.
Guru.
That does not
none of that
make
stuff.
You
like it does not make you that. You can give good advice, yes, but a lot of times, and I ran into this. But just because I'm a pastor, people automatically assume I got to be a counselor. You got some great pastors who are terrible counselors. Okay? Terrible. The last person you need to be asking advice from is that joker over there. And it's not because he's a bad person. He's not a good communicator when it comes to stuff. And so
but can give a speech.
Give a good speech and a good orator.
Because
and
it's one
come on. Yeah, right. But you're talking about trying to have a nuanced conversation about things. They are not the best when it comes to stuff like that. So, I'm not saying that people need to be specialized or anything like that per se. Mm-hmm. But okay, I am saying it. I'm filtered, right? I'm filtered. Sometimes, you need to check who you're getting your advice from. Mm-hmm. Check who you're getting your counsel from, because just because somebody has title behind a pastor behind their name does not mean that they are automatically all these other things too. That's number one. So going back to what you were saying, like these pastors who put on these workshops, like. The tendency is for us to just take their word as gold. But, for something like, intimacy and relationships and sexuality and stuff, if you're gonna set a shop up like that, one, you need to figure out how many people actually can be in this thing and it still be, good sign-ups and stuff. And then you need to have, like, live professionals teaching that thing, and you need to make sure that everybody's safe, everybody's protected, and that the intent doesn't change. Because in a situation like that where they would just get up and just doing everything they did under the sun, and no one questioned them because they the pastor and first lady, you don't know what people's intents were going in there. And like I was telling Nicole earlier, the last thing I would want somebody to do is, if I'm giving a live demonstration, now they can't get their mind off me. And so it's no longer about trying to be intimate with this person or trying to be intimate with that person. Instead, it's all about, now I'm fantasizing about my demonstrator. And I'm trying to do it like my demonstrator. I'm trying to be like I'm trying to, oh my gosh, I'm trying to make you act like the demonstrator acted. And if you don't do that, then that means that we failed, or that you don't love me right, and all this kind of stuff. And so it's like, in situations like that, like you can't just assume that because I'm a pastor or a first lady that I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Like, and I feel like a lot of times that goes back to what we said before. Go ahead.
I mean, that's even with the word, Eddie. Like, I mean, yeah, you go to church, assuming that the pastor knows what he's talking about, and you're trusting in that word and everything. But I even when you've given me scripture and not discrediting you or anything like that, or saying that I don't trust you, but you gotta go back and read it for yourself. You gotta go back and read it for yourself. Yes. Because my thing is, I love how the word, like, you just go to one verse and read it, and then you go back like a day, week later, and you read it again, and it's something, you get something totally different out of it. Or someone is reading that verse and then you go to it and you get something totally different out of it. I've done that before. Like sitting in church and I hear this verse and then something like what the pastor is saying is totally different from what I'm thinking, and not saying that he's wrong, but God has given me something different about it. You know what I'm saying? So you have to, no matter who it is, you have to go back and read and study that thing for yourself. The same way with what we're talking about as far as, sex and all that. Like, yeah, somebody can tell you something, but just because somebody tells you something doesn't make it right for you.
For you, exactly. Especially when especially if you're talking about bodies, because everybody is different. And everybody responds different.
Yeah.
You can't do something for one person and think it's going to work for every person. And again, the fear is that now that I've shown you how to do it, now you got to go do it. And now it don't work because the person's body is different from the person who was doing the demonstration. Now you think something wrong with you, right? Math ain't mathing now, and now you mad. When all the while, if you would have actually gone to a real professional, they would have told you the first thing you need to do before you even try to be physical is y'all got to be connected emotionally and spiritually. Before you even think about trying to do anything physically like that, because the emotional make all the difference in the world. When you want to be wanted, when you know that you're wanted, when you know that you're loved and know that you're cared for, it makes things infinity% easier and much more enjoyable. It doesn't feel forced.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like, okay, we got to do this because it's time. Like, it doesn't feel that way. I often talk about how, grateful I am, that our relationship is where it is, because a lot of times, even when we want to be like physically intimate, we'll have those moments where it's just like, you know what, I'm tired right now. And, and the fact, and the truth is, like, that's great. Come lay down. And that's intimacy.
Yeah.
Like, that's connection where I don't have to force anything. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But in everything that we do, there's intimacy and connection there. And so it's no longer about just two bodies doing what they do, but rather it's about us being connected holistically. Yes. So that every moment is an intimate moment. Where something as simple as us playing a video game can be a moment of intimacy because of, that's what we do and that's how we connect and bond. And so, but again, I'm saying all that to say, like, if you're just wanting to teach about sexuality and things, and you don't teach about the intimacy portion of it, or the biggest component of it, then you end up getting people more frustrated in the spirit.
Yeah.
They're frustrated in the spirit because now I don't feel connected to you. But the fact of the matter is, we were trying to connect in a way that was not godly. It was all about physical connection, and it wasn't about the spirit.
Exactly.
But again, it's because they the pastors and they the first ladies, and they can do that. And this looks like this will be fun. Y'all missing so much about that. And again, yes, that's something that needs to be talked about more. I feel like it needs to be talked about more in the church because it's one of the least talked about subjects about the human experience to me. But the people who are currently talking about it are spiritually immature in that area. So they don't know how to talk about it. They only know what they know. And so rather than actually trying to get more versed in it, from objective perspectives and not just their own perspective, it makes it more difficult to then teach it to 50,000 people.
Yeah.
So.
That's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it would be really cool to go to like a sex education like workshop or something like that. Not to like, cause we're fine, we're good, but it's just something cool. It's just, I don't know. That's just one of those things where like you just sometimes like wonder like, what do other people think, and not trying to like gain more ideas or like step out or do anything,
or maybe gain more ideas,
or not like to step out or anything like that, But sometimes I am just curious as to how other people think. Like, even why I got that parenting book, not saying that we're doing a bad job at parenting. It's just, I think it's just cool to read like some of these things that we've already been doing. You know, it's almost like a confirmation. But even if I read something that we haven't been doing, or that they say we're doing wrong, that doesn't mean that it's wrong for us. Like, because everybody is, I feel like a lot of times everybody is writing about, you know, their own experience,
Yes.
or you know, their own knowledge about things, and the fact that they're not in our situation or our position is different, because we're not in the same position as some others. Some others are like in a different world than us, to be honest with you. And so just to read about some of these things, and even if we wanted to, just like with the book or with sex, if we wanted to try some of those things, you know, it's I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as we are on the same page about it. That's the most important. As long as we're in sync about that,
which means,
and we agree on things.
Which means, going back to the show that we watched 2 weekends ago, we gotta talk. We gotta talk. And that's the problem with a lot of people, period. We don't know how to talk to each other anymore. Or rather, we have not, we have the capability of talking. We just choose not to. And I think you started saying this earlier. Our pride can sometimes get in the way of having conversations with each other about the things that we want to do, want to try, or whatever. And God tells us that He doesn't give us the spirit of fear, the power, love, and a sound mind, and further that the truth will make us free. And so a lot of times we're not operating in our own power because of fear. Fear of what they might say, fear of what they might think, fear of what they might do, fear of hearing the word no. I don't want them to tell me no. And so a lot of times we won't even communicate those things that we want to learn, want to try, want to, think about other perspectives, because we want to be either right so badly, or we don't want to be told we're wrong so badly, or, we want to keep doing things the way we've always done them, that we won't even consider. That there may be a different way. There might be a better way. There might be a more godly way. Like you were talking about with earlier about different. I think this is where the conversation started from. Like for different churches having like different ways. That's where it started. We were talking about how different churches have different ways of talking or teaching the Bible or singing songs.
Oh yeah.
We were talking about how they were singing songs, and how every church is different.
Every church is different, and they teach they teach the ways, their methods of teaching may be different, but as long as they're teaching the truth, and then we started talking about
like how some churches will end up thinking that their way is the only way, and so they criticize other methods, and it's like, dude, there's nothing wrong with any of it. There was another TikTok video that I saw of a pastor who was preaching, and he was talking about okay, I'm going to try not to mess this up, because he said it so good. He said he went into the book of Samson, and he looked at how Samson took the jawbone of a donkey, and he used that jawbone of a donkey to kill 1,000 people. 1,000 people were killed with this donkey bone. And once he was done with the donkey bone, he threw the donkey bone away.
It's donkey bone.
Donkey bone. and so he said that really fascinated him, because if you think about anything, if it works well, you want to hold on to it. You want to keep it. You want to hold on to that thing, because it could probably kill 10,000 more. But he did what it was designed to do, and he threw the bone away when he was done with it. And he said, what do? When there's something that we do that's successful, we repeat it. And sometimes we repeat it so much that we'll try to recreate it. And we'll recreate it to the point where we'll start to market it. And we start to market it so we can sell it. And we sell it so we can then turn it into a trade. And that's why trades are traditions.
Dang. Really?
Yeah, because he was saying it worked for the time period and the method that it was working for. But then we forget what we needed it for in the first place. So now we're saying that this is the only way by which to do what we wanted to do, when Samson could have killed those people any other way and still killed them. He could have used a bow. He could have used a sword. He could have used a lance. But in that time, he used the donkey, the jawbone of a donkey, killed the people, then threw the jawbone away. He was done. It was done. It was finished. It was accomplished. It's not that who's to say that same jawbone would have helped him kill the next 1,000. Who knows? But the point is, a different method could have still given the same result. But we get so caught up in the method that we think that if another method comes that does the same thing that our method did in the 60s, then we're doing it wrong. Because we're not using the same method that was used back in the 60s today. Even though today's method is going to produce the same result that the 1960s method produced in the 60s. And so he was saying, that we got to get out of our way, get out of our own way, and allow God to be God.
Yeah.
And however he chooses to show up, to deliver his people, to set people free, to redeem people from their sins, to move them forward in the kingdom, we got to get out of God's way, not our way. Get out of God's way. And we'll sometimes take what God used back then and think that that's the only way. And it's not. I love how Paul said in the Word, when he said, and we said this I think last week, I wish there was a way for me to be at everybody's house at once and preach this gospel. It's 2023 and Paul's vision has come to life. We can now be in everybody's house and we be right here in the comfort of our own home and give the gospel. And so, now if Paul would have seen us doing this, would he have gotten upset? Because, well, that's not how I did it back in 3. How we did it back in 5. I would hope not. I would hope he'd be like, yes, finally, this is what I've been wanting to do. I ain't gotta go nowhere. I can stay at the house and give the word to everybody. I'm finally able to do what I've been wanting to do. So I think about that, and again, it breaks my heart to see so many people who are so stuck in, I want to do it my way. I want it done the way that I did it when I was growing up. It's like, no, dude, we can't keep operating that way, because, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm preaching. Because if you consider what happened in 2020, right? The pandemic hit. How many businesses failed?
Many. We talked about that on the way home.
Yes, because they were not prepared for an extinction level event like the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so they failed. And they failed because they didn't have the infrastructure, or they didn't have the business model, or they didn't have the technology, they didn't have the help, the money, whatever, in order to move forward. So the businesses that stayed alive and thrived are the ones that adapted. They said, listen, we got to go to Zoom. So we Zooming now.
They were able to.
They were able to Zoom.
Some of the businesses weren't able to.
And that's my point. Like, some businesses were doomed to fail because they were not set up or designed for a pandemic-like situation. Yeah. And, that's what I was going to get my PhD on. I was going to talk about the whole thing. But it's like...
You should still do it.
Maybe. So, with those businesses, like, they had to adapt so they could continue moving. Yeah. Why is it that the church is the only place where we won't do that? Where it feels like, anyway. Because there's some churches that... Some churches are gone. They are gone.
But then there are others
that are like, nah, we gonna do it like we did back in 1846 when we laid the first brick down, because this is the way it's always been. Nobody show up though, and I don't understand why they're not showing up.
But I keep asking, how can we get
more people
we need
to
go
come
out in the community, and we need to do that.
You
can do that.
You can do that. You can, or we could try this way too. Just saying, go find where they're at. TikTok, Facebook,
meet them where
they are.
Not try to get them to come to us.
Us, exactly.
Because in reality, are they going to come to us?
Come on now. No. And why are they not coming to us? Because we're not flashy. We don't have all the special frillies and stuff. But what we do have is what we've always said. We got the gospel. And the gospel will do the work if we present it to the people where they are. And so that's why, again, it's like, if we can get past wanting to do things our way and just preach an unadulterated gospel, the gospel will do the work.
Yeah.
It will do the work. Now, again, we got to get out of our way. Oh my gosh, like this morning during worship service, I about wanted to bust out in tears and they started singing "The Great Is Thy Faithfulness."
Yeah.
Because I was like, dude, that's what I've been saying forever. Take that same old lyric and put some different music behind it. Same song.
Same message.
Same message. It's the same freaking lyrics, word for word. They didn't change not one lyric to the song. They sung all 4 verses. Exactly.
They changed
the instruments, the drums, but the same words. Same words. But nah, because they didn't do 404, 8S7SD, what a friend. Like now, so it's like we keep missing the forest for the trees. Same song, same message, just packaged in a different way.
We keep missing the trees.
Them too.
Bushes.
Right. And so it's like, again, it's like for me, that's why, again, going back to what we said at the very beginning at the top, like that's why this podcast is important to me, because I feel like it gives us an opportunity to. I remember the song that we used to sing a lot when we first heard it, and for years we used to listen to it all the time. Free to worship, we feel. Yes. I feel like this space gives us the freedom to give people Jesus the way that God has given it to us to give them.
Yeah.
I feel like, and I'll talk about myself. I feel like, I'm grateful that I got to be a pastor, but it was never in the cards for me to be one. Not the way that people wanted me to be, or the way that people designed pastoring to be. That was never meant for me. And the reason being is because, the message that we have is too great to be reduced to a church. Now maybe someday in life God will turn that thing around and put us in a place like Transformation or Crosspoint or something. Right. I heard that. But at the end of the day, my intention is to herald the truth. Like I don't have, I'm so, it took forever to finally figure this out, because you had said this to me so many doggone times. I don't have to be the pastor of a church. We don't have to be leaders of a ministry in order to give people Jesus. Because Jesus didn't set us up to just run 501c3 organizations. He sent us on mission to just speak the truth wherever we go, in whatever capacity that He has us in. And so I'm grateful that God has given us the technology to be able to give people the word. He's given us access to give people the word. Mm-hmm. We can put it on Spotify, put it on Apple Music, all that.
Which we're
gonna do. So now that we got everything together, I'm gonna put episodes 1 through 4 should be on there by sometime midweek. And we just give people Jesus. Just give them Jesus. True, unfiltered, and see. And let God work. It don't matter whether we see it or not. You say to me all the time, it don't matter whether we see the results or not, but we just let it happen. Let it happen. So yeah, man. So that's all for today. Again, I'm gonna upload these, and every episode after this will be uploaded on the Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts. And so be looking forward to hearing more from us. And we're just grateful to be a part of your listening, pleasure. And we hope that this helps edify those who do walk with God, and for those who don't, that it touches your heart and want to get closer to Him. And may God be glorified in either way, because it is not about us. It is all about God, and we're just happy to share with you what we know of Him, because of what He shared with us when He saved us. All right. Well, listen, y'all, take care of yourselves. Be well. My wife and I used to say this on an old podcast, so we're gonna put it on this one too. You can't see the good. Be the good. Love you guys.